Hello, this is Marian Pena coming to you from seemstobeso.com. Today I'm going to show you a quick video on how to work with your brush stroke tool in Electric Quilt. I've already opened a project file which I'm just calling lesson stuff, and it's just a basic. It doesn't have any sketchbook items or anything like that. It's just a blank canvas to work from today. The Brush Stoke Tool, I think by default, is not shown on your left-hand toolbar. So if you need it, you will get to it by clicking here on the small arrow and choosing Add or Remove Buttons. You will get a pop-up window which is not showing for me. Hold on just a second, we'll try and get it into view. Okay, I think I finally got it there. But as you can see, it makes a little pop-up window, and you can choose the various options. I have several that are always unchecked, don't usually use them, but I'm also going to check the Swath tool here because we'll kind of briefly go over that one as well. Okay, so now that we're just basically going to work with these two tools today. So I kind of want to show you what they do. When I first started using Electric Quilt, I had said I didn't see a need for these tools, but as you start to use Electric Quilt and you play and experiment some, you start realizing the value of these various tools. For many months, I used the Berserk curve only. I didn't really use too many other tools. I did use the line tool because that's a straight line, and when you need a straight line, it's great for that because it gives you just that straight line. The freehand tool is very fun to use, and I'll leave that for another tutorial at some time, but I do use that just when I'm in a fun mood and I just want to play. But the brush stroke tool, which is today's concentrated class, I'm not going to go over it in a major way, but the help file for the brush stroke is extremely good. So if you need to use it, you can. I like to use the search, and I will just type in brush stroke, and you can find everything you need that it covers on the subject in the list. And as you can see on the brush stroke help file, there's quite a bit of information covered here on every aspect, and that's stuff that I don't really want to go over, but I'm going to kind of show you what they do. But it's really a good way for you to have a look when you're playing with this tool. I hope I'm not scrolling too fast for the video. Okay, so when you're playing with the brush stroke tool, the one thing I'm going to mention here is that these two are probably your most important parts of the tool. These are also important, the contour and the end cap, because they help to shape whatever you're drawing. These are for the thickness of what you're drawing. And when you change these, there's a setting in the block, the drawing board setup under stroke and swath. When you change these settings, they automatically will change here also. The difference is if I take this down right now to 0, I like to start at the very bottom, because normally when I'm using this tool, I'm wanting very thin lines. This tool is exceptionally good for when you're drawing things like a mouth or eyelashes. Even in some cases, I'm sorry, not eyelashes, but eyebrows. You can draw eyelashes, but you need a really thin line, and you're better off using your freehand tool or your Berserk curve, unless you're trying to make a really thick eyelash. So anyway, don't mess too much with my Swath tools because I don't use the Swath tool very often, but I'm going to show you a pretty cool feature of the Swath tool. So what's important here is, as you can see, it has changed my settings. If I change this setting and I go back to my drawing board setup, it's also changed it here. So I don't see the point in making the change in this setting because it doesn't remember the settings from one time or another. And Electric Quilt won't either. When you close it, if you've changed the settings, they'll go back to whatever electric quilt has chosen for the default. So you can't make a permanent change here. So it makes no sense to change the setup on the drawing board setup window. You might as well just do it here. So when you go to use the Brush Stroke tool, however, and you click on it, you want to go ahead and set these settings. Like I said, I like to go all the way down to the very skinniest and the very thinnest and work up from there. And that's because it allows me to really check out what I want in the drawing. Sometimes I don't want something real thick, but I don't really know the line number I should be at. So if I work my way up, you'll see what I mean. So I'm going to just draw a fun little line here. And as you can see, when you're using the brush stroke tool, it draws like a line. But the moment I release this, it will become the brush stroke. And as you can see here, it's drawn what, if you were a digitizer in machine embroidery, we'd call this the column tool. And then what it does is it makes zigzags on the inside. But it looks the same, but it's not the same in electric quilt here. In electric quilt, if we need to edit, we can come up here and edit this. We can move this around if we want this curve to be larger. You have to have some shape to get more than one node. For the most part, you're only going to usually have the two nodes and they're going to be at the start and the end. You don't the brush stroke tool is not a closed tool because it has it has two ends, and while you can bring it to a point where it looks like it's closed, it's a closed tool in the terms that from one to the end to the other it's a closed object, but it's not closed like if you have a circle, for instance, and that's a closed object. Okay, that I don't know if I can make myself clear on what I mean by that, but when you work with this tool, you'll see what I mean. Okay, so now we want to try and change some of these settings. I'm going to show you what some of the contours do. One of my favorite contours to use is this one. And the reason why I like this is because as you take and you change your thickness, you can see what's happening here. It's getting wider in the middle and it's still thin on the ends. And you can also change the width, make it a little wider here as you go, and it makes these a little wider also, but this is very wide. Another option is to choose one where you have a fat end on the one end and it becomes skinny on the other. And this is the same with this one. It will change. This one over here is fat and this is skinny over here. So depending on your contour, whichever one you choose, this is another favorite where this is skinny in the middle. I use this a lot for mouths. When you, or lips, I guess you could say, when you want, you know, to change, depending on the shape you want the line to form, no matter what you've drawn, then you change your contour. The end caps are interesting because it changes the end caps. Like when you want a really pointy, fine line, you're going to choose the point. There's another point that's a little bit softer in its nature, more of a rounded edge. Then you have a really rounded edge, which really comes to, as you can see, very round. And then we have just a straight edge. I don't use this too often, but I will show you a little trick that I do use with this, and I'm just going to leave it on the straight edge for now. Once you are done playing with this tool, if you don't need to move it or change the shape any longer, if you don't need to edit some of the points and that point, you can now come over to your convert to patch. And you always have to convert these to a patch, because until you do, Electric Quilt doesn't really consider it a shape. It's just an object on the table, and you can't color it or do anything with it. It's just going to be there. as part of the software, as an object in the software, but it's not going to become part of a template or anything like that. Okay, so now this is where we can take and really have some fun. This, as you can see, it's added more nodes when you do the editing so that it can keep the curves that you have in place. Excuse me, I need to cough. Okay, so then you can move what you want around here. I'm sorry, I should have grabbed a node. You can move this the way you want, and then you can grab the other node, and you can pretty much, as you can see, do whatever you want here. You have them in place. You can add more nodes if you need to. If you want to change the shape or do something you like, then or do, you know, just do something else, you can do that here as well. One of the tricks I thought I would show you is we're going to zoom in here, and you can see this is not liking this. As you can see, I've never saw that happen in the software before, but it's easily fixed just by moving the node. So one of the things I like to do, I don't really like to use the pointy nodes. I don't know why, but to me they're just too pointy. But when I do a mouth, I like to have the curved straight line on it. So I'll take and make one of the points taller, or move it over so it's on a diagonal shape, and then the other one is at a lower height. So then what happens is it gives that just a softer straight edge versus what you see over here where there's this still straight. I would do the same over here. I would just change this also so that, as you can see, it's more soft and it works out better. Okay, see, now that's really interesting. I've never seen this happen before, but I'm just going to kind of give this a little fix, and hopefully that works. I'm not sure why it wants to do that. I've never ever seen this happen. Okay, that, well, excuse me. Too much coffee today, I think. I think we can get that fixed in just by working with your little nodes just a bit and getting them to work out. It's all fixed and taken care of. I'm glad I didn't try to take this offline, because that way if this happens to you, you can fix it too. Okay, so that's pretty much it with this tool. This is a really fun tool to use, and like I say, I use this quite often. I recently used it in I used it for the little ropes on a hot air balloon I just recently made into a pattern. And so that tells you, just when you have like straight legs, you can use it for straight legs even. You know, instead of using this, or I would use normally I would use just my shape tool for the rectangular. But as I'm sitting here thinking, if you happen to be working with this tool and you need it, you could go ahead and draw it, because like I say, you just do a straight line and there you go, you've got it, and you can hit that, make it as wide as you want first, and then hit that, and off you go to the races. So that's a really quick way to just do legs even, if they're straight. Okay, so let's take a look at the Swath tool real quick. I don't get to use this tool very often, and I'm kind of just playing with it for this lesson just as a little bit of a bonus, but from what I've seen of this tool, it's pretty darn cool. So recently in the EQ Seasons row along, I have seen people doing some cool stuff with flying geese blocks. And so I'm just going to take and I'm going to make a circle of a famous flying geese pattern I saw. And look how cool that is. Is that not just amazing? I love it. And I guess if you take and you do different styles, you can get different blocks. You could probably resize it so you can see it better. And just changing the different styles and contours also would be really fun. I'm kind of recognizing this as a famous quilt pattern I've seen of late just around the web. Wouldn't that just be fun to play with? And as you can see, you can really play with your widths here as well. You can make really fat flying geese, you know, and let's take our boldness down and see what happens, you know. I think it's just making it smaller. But I think that this would be really fun to play with, and you know, it really does. I know flying geese are so much fun, and yet most people don't like to put together flying geese. I think they're one of the funnest little blocks to make. But I love those flying around. I love the idea of flying geese just flying around into your block in curves and various shapes. It would be fun to play with this and see how far it would go. Why don't you play with it and post me a picture on my Flickr page or send it to me in email. I would love to see what you come up with. This is Marian Pena. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson today. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Bye bye for now. We'll see you soon.